Yevamos. We had the incredible privilege today to learn Yevamos Daf Chaf Zayin, and we began our shir today with a statement of Shmuel. So Shmuel was discussing, of course, the case of the two brothers, Reuven and Shimon, who were married to two sisters, Rachel and Leah, and each of them had an additional wife as well. Reuven and Shimon then passed away, and halacha l'maisa, all four of these wives, two from Reuven, two from Shimon, fell to Levi for Yibum. And Shmuel highlighted the concept. First of all, Shmuel reinforced the idea Yesh Zega, which tells us that halacha l'maisa, there is a quasi-marital bond which exists between the Yavam and the women. That's number one. Number two, what Shmuel also taught us was that there are different levels of chalitza. What we'll call us the highest level of chalitza, superior chalitza, is a situation where the Yavam has the choice to do Yibum or chalitza. So in a case where, again, we have the choice, Yibum and chalitza, that's superior chalitza. There's inferior chalitza. Inferior chalitza is a case where halacha l'maisa, the Yavam doesn't have a choice to do Yibum, he only has a choice to do chalitza, or can only do chalitza. That's an inferior chalitza. What's an afkaminu? What's the practical difference between a superior chalitza and an inferior chalitza? So Shmuel explains that halacha l'maisa, the fundamental distinction lies in the following fact. A superior chalitza has the ability to go ahead and affect chalitza for the woman with whom you do chalitza, as well as for any other tsaros, any other co-wives. A compromised or an inferior chalitza only has the ability to go ahead and affect chalitza for the woman with whom you do chalitza, but not for the tsaros. The co-wives will require their own chalitza. So that was pretty much the entire Amid Aleph of the Gemara, where the Gemara was explaining this particular position of Shmuel. On Chaf Zayin Amud Beis, we then got into a very interesting discussion about what happens if, let's say again, same case, well, similar case, let's say again, Reuven passes away, leaves behind two wives to Shimon. And interestingly enough, Shimon goes ahead and gives one of them a get and does ma'amar with the second one. So at the moment that he goes in and he gives one of them a get, what becomes abundantly clear is that halacha l'maisa, Yibum is no longer possible. So the shaila now is, which one should he do chalitza with? So should he do chalitza ultimately with the one who he gave the get, since essentially he began a divorce-like process, or with the one with whom he started ma'amar, since ultimately he has a closer connection to her? So the Gemara essentially answers, it's the same. In other words, he could do chalitza with either one, because l'maisa, again, both of those women have the same basic status. We then went on, and this is the case we left off with, the statement of Rav. And in this case over here, you had the following situation. Reuven and Shimon once again married to two sisters, and Reuven and Shimon both pass away. So now ultimately again, these sisters fall to Levi for Yibum. So remember again, Rav said that halacha l'maisa, if Reuven does chalitza with the first, we'll call her Rachel, she's free to go. Leah, she's free to go. But then here's the interesting question. What happens if halacha l'maisa, one of these women passes away? So remember again, when they're both alive, so we already established that halacha l'maisa, Yibum is impossible because of achos zikukaso. There's yesh seka, there's a marital bond. He's connected to both of these women, and were he to do Yibum with either of them, he would be doing Yibum with the sister of a woman with whom he has a zeka. What happens if one of them passes away? So Rav said that halacha l'maisa, if one of them passes away, he has the ability then to go ahead and do Yibum ultimately with either of them. Rabbi Yochanan says it depends who passed away. If the second one, let's say again, Reuven passed away first and left behind his widow Rachel, and then Shimon passed away second and left behind his widow Leah, so ultimately, again, Rabbi Yochanan says as follows. If Leah passes away, then ultimately Rachel becomes permitted. Why? Because Rachel was already permitted at the outset. Remember, there was a period of time where Rachel was the only woman waiting for Yibum. As such, she was permitted ultimately to do Yibum with Levi. So if now Leah comes on the scene, complicates or precludes that, if Leah were to pass away, then halacha l'maisa, Rachel would be once again return to the state of Yibum permissibility. It's the idea ultimately again that halacha l'maisa, she was permitted, became prohibited, and then becomes permitted again. But halacha l'maisa, Rabbi Yochanan says that if Rachel, the first Yevama, were to pass away, ultimately that would not clear the road for Leah. Why? Because the moment that Leah became subject to Yibum, she was already precluded from doing Yibum. And ultimately, what Rabbi Yochanan is positing is your ability, or your ability to do Yibum is fundamentally solidified and concretized at the moment that you fall to Yibum. So therefore, because the moment that Leah became eligible for Yibum, she wasn't allowed to do Yibum, because again, her sister was in the same Yibum pool. Therefore, even if her sister, if Rachel dies, she does not become eligible. This is a fundamental machlokes, Rabbi Yochanan and Rav. That's where we left off. The way Rabbi Yochanan says essentially is, any woman who at the time she becomes eligible for Yibum is not in compliance with the pasuk of Yevama Yavo Aleha, that literally she could do Yibum. If you can't do Yibum at the start, then ultimately, again, even if something changes later on, you still remain precluded from doing Yibum. How we paskin in that case, in Meretz Hashem, we will see tomorrow. Shkayach everyone, wishing everyone a wonderful day.